Alright, I'm going to bring us to the other side of the fence.
Please.
I have been guilty of supervising.
Ah.
Totally.
So this is a confessional.
This is, now we're confessing.
Okay, we can absolve you afterwards. So.
I am a perfectionist. I tend to be a perfectionist in a lot of small things that I do. And I will give you two ridiculously dumb examples. But I am guilty of this, and I'm trying to be conscious that when I do this and get away from it.
Okay.
There was one time, this is another just a stupid example, there was one time I was making a cake, and it was this new pan that my mom had bought. And it was a massive cupcake is the cake. One half of the pan is like the bottom half of the cupcake. The other half is the top, it's just upside down, and you have to stick it together and frost it. And one of my friends, she asked if she could frost the cake, and I sat there for a second like, well, because I knew how I wanted it to be done, and I wanted it to be done a certain way in the correct way, and I did not trust that she could do it. But I did, and then I ended up going back anyways and fixing it after she did it. And then the other thing is, and I mentioned this last time, I'm kind of a neat freak when it comes to cleaning my apartment. My roommates, when they help me clean, I need to be grateful when they help me clean. But my problem is I supervise when they clean, and I will kind of follow them around and, well, you didn't do that right, and this needs to be cleaned more. And they look at me like, well, what do you want? And
we need to take Amber's glasses off and put them on a little bit. Were you here whenever we did that
yes.
example? It's hard because we have our way of viewing things, and it's hard to be able to say, oh man, just move that. It's like Monk. Have you guys seen the TV show Monk?
Yes.
It's like, move that over an inch and you're good, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe go ahead.
Going off of him, I kind of do that with my roommates. But it's not to that extent, I don't think. I feel like I'm almost being their mom, and that sucks. Because literally, one of my roommates, her room is a disaster. And I can't even walk in the door. And then the other roommate hasn't even unpacked, and then I'm just like, I have everything where I need it to be. And then the roommate that has the mess will tell me to remind her to do stuff. Like I am her mom. And they're 20 and 21, I'm 17. You know, that's kind of sad in a way. But they've kind of put me in that position to like tell them what to do. And it's weird.
Well, so it's a good question. Because, so I had a colleague who, when we went into his office, he would hide behind this mound of stuff on his desk. And you said something, Whitney, that caused me to think about this example. You said you have everything right where you need it. How do we know that what they're living, they don't know where their things are? This particular colleague, it was a mess to us. Yet if you asked him where something was, he'd go right into the pile and get it. And so remember, what works for you and me may not work for him and her.
Well, she loses everything, so I kind of can assume that way.
And that could be the case.
Like she locked herself out because she lost her keys.
And do we?
And they're still missing.
And are we enabling when we continue to do that? Yeah, Tyson.
And that's exactly like it's for both of you. One, who's empowering who? Are we empowering ourselves? But then, what is the most effective way of doing it? Is this the most effective way that you know how to clean? Is this the most effective way you know how to be a roommate? Because they think the other roommates. They think that talking to you and having you be their mom is the most effective way. And so, and therein lies the problem. They think that's the most effective way. They have no reason to kind of change their paradigm shift or to look for something that is better. And that's kind of the hard part. Is we have to kind of encourage them along to realize, hey, you know what? You don't need me. You can actually empower yourself. And I think that's what it really comes down to is, are we empowering ourselves? Are we letting other people empower themselves?
And this goes back to the comment when we talked about feedback. Are we treating someone as it is? Or are we treating someone as a thou? Is it an I-it relationship, or is it an I-thou relationship? And I think, and I know I've made my fair share of mistakes, and we have the consequences that we deal with. But when you see people as a person, as opposed to an object to be controlled and manipulated, so to speak, and maybe that's not even our intent, but that's at least perceived that way, if not really felt that way. Yeah, go ahead.
And actually, this just came up. I feel bad for talking twice in a row, but
For fire.
You're reaching that limit.
but I've worked in management, and even yesterday we did Habitat for Humanities, and we put on this person's roof, which is kind of big for Habitat because they never kind of do that kind of stuff. But they had 4 nailers going at the same time, and we have we've got 10 people up on the roof, which is just unheard of. But it actually worked out because you had the one guy that knew how the roof should look, and then you had 10 people out there kind of doing all the same things at different, they're all just out there and they're working and stuff like that. And the one guy didn't pick up a hammer, he didn't really do anything but make sure that everybody was on task. He was kind of that task manager. He wasn't supervising, he was directing. He was kind of the conductor of the orchestra, and that orchestra worked perfect. And I'm just like, wow, this guy, I would love to have this guy in kind of a management position because you did that little bit funky there, you just adjust it that way, you're doing great. He would encourage people, but he would take over. And he was the best management I've seen in a while because he just let us do our things, but we knew where the ship was going. We knew where due north was. We had our variations in that, but we all got there successfully.
So it sounds like you all had a pretty good vision, and he allowed you to do that and did some correcting where needed. Good. Yeah, Parker?
Well, and I completely agree with that because there's a difference between somebody who is jumping down your throat constantly, on your case, telling you, you need to do this, you need to do this, I thought that my parents were the worst parents in the world when I was a kid, just because my dad was that kind of a guy who would constantly remind me, and granted, I probably needed that constant reminder when I was a kid, because I was all over the place, and I would get distracted easily, but I learned that people just don't like that, I found that when my dad and mom gave me chores to do, and then they would leave to go run errands, I would probably get those chores done. But when they're home, and they're constantly telling me, hey, you need to do this, it would take me triple the amount of time to do them, because I didn't want to do them. So I think there's a difference with somebody who's micromanaging and down your throat, versus, somebody who is that task manager who is encouraging you and making you feel like you're doing a good job, just tweak that, and you're going to be great. And then he leaves to go do other things, and you feel like, I can do this now. Like, he trusts me to get this done.
Yeah, and if you think about a task, whether it's at work, or let me give you another example that you were saying at home, okay? Clara, one of my daughters, go clean your room. I'm not going to talk about what might motivate her to do that. But to be able to say, okay, here's the outcome, here's the consequence, positive or negative. If you clean your room by this time, you can go out and play. If you don't, you'll have to wait to be able to go play until you clean your room. So if that's the outcome that we want, the clean room, what difference does it make if I'm constantly trying to remind you, which is probably going to be worse, because our natural tendency is like, dude, shut up. It's like, I get it. You don't need to remind. It's like you said, you want to do the opposite. But because if the outcome and the consequence are the same, then why do we need to continue to remind? Because they know the consequence. It's on them. And it's trust. You've extended that trust. You know what's going to happen. And as soon as they complete the task, they get to have the consequence, positive consequence. So, okay. These are good comments and thoughts. So hopefully you're starting to maybe think about your own paradigm. I think some of you are about what do I do? Okay, so let's think about some examples. Let's see here. Yeah, let's do these three here. Who'd be willing to read these bullet points? Start with the first one. Go ahead, Amber.
Policies, rules are often created to address the 3% of those who cheat the system.
Okay, let's stop right there. So we're assuming mistrust. How often do you see a policy that's put in place that only addresses the minority? I mean, it happens in school. I mean, for example, all of us are here today. How many of you had a class where you have a reading quiz to make sure you do the reading? Okay, is that an example of a lack of trust? If you think about it, it is. Or even giving points. I don't give points for reading. I don't give points for coming to class because I trust that you guys are human beings and you can make big girl and big boy decisions to come to class and do the reading if that fits in. But I think a lot of times we have policies that address the minority and it punishes the majority. Okay, let's keep going. Amber, you want to read the second?
Create policies, rules that focus on extending trust to the 97% you can trust.
Okay. Now, granted, there's an organizational behavior idea out there that there are going to be, and the numbers may vary, but there's a middle group. Well, there's a top group, top 20% of your people. They'll just buy in naturally. You've got a group that just they're on board, regardless of really what happens. You've got a middle group that can kind of go either way,